the diet, like that, like macaroni and cheese, and having like seven different like dairies. Like, what do you think about that style of
I,
eating
I,
today?
I think like everything is in moderation. What happens is this is me being negative again, but I think that because we have an abundance of stuff, we're too much abundant on high flavors of certain things for the mass majority of people, right? Part of it too is because while I was cooking, I started to think about like how they talk about obesity is in California, not California, United States, and then how different countries come here, but oh, your food's hella good, but it's hella sugary and it's all that, and we don't know that because we're so used to it, right? So I'm watching, and maybe it's different in France. I don't know because I've never been there, but I hear it's supposed to be really elegant and very rich. But it's like an event, and it's not like you do it all the time. While in America, we expect to do it all the time. Or at least that's what it seems like. I need to do more dive into it. So I think everything that we put in and everything we eat, it's just over the top, you know, like just heavy cheese, heavy whatever. Does it taste good? Fuck yeah, it does. But we're not supposed to be eating that all the time. You know what I'm saying?
It's the
Like,
American way, bro.
right? Like it's a gluttonous, oh, like it's the $1 billion American way, right? Do you really need $1 billion? Do you really need all that cheese and eat it like every other day? Do you really need that? Really need all that sugar
How much of
every
that is
time?
like mental conditioning versus just like habit? Like it was just kind of incorporated into our
Well,
life.
that's a weird thing because I wonder like it's. Well, I was gonna go say sometimes mental conditioning is a habit, right? Right? You just grew up and it was like, okay, frosted flakes every morning.
Oh
I
yeah.
fucks with, frosted flakes every morning with milk. At one point, depending on look how you look at it or not, I like we grew up where milk it does the body good,
Oh
and
yeah.
now we're in a point where people are like, I don't know if we're supposed to drink any other animal's lactate, bruh.
Yeah, what happened to that? Them commercials were like well funded. Those are like commercials on the Super
It
Bowl.
was out. Yeah, people like I was like, yo, let me get that milk so I can be 6'4".
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Remember that? Like, get your calcium, and it was like, hey, they looked at the kid, and it was like, you drink milk, you're gonna be tall. I
mm-hmm.
was like, fuck, let me get, and I was out, and I ended up being like 5'7.5", and I'm like, I didn't crying, I didn't drink enough milk, you know,
Oh man, I used to drink a shit ton of milk.
you know
Only
what I'm
because it was
saying?
cold. I was like, oh, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, but like, I don't know the whole history behind all that, but there's the part where I'm like, I get the flavors and the things that are supposed to be kind of good, right? And I'm all for that, like eating decadent food and good stuff at a point. But the problem is, it's like it's not like once in a while. It's like a every night thing for most Americans, you know. And even
Mm-hmm.
if it's not like as heavy for Thanksgiving, it's more like, okay, hey, I get home boxed food, or hey, I get home, here's McDonald's, you know. And then it's like you don't realize that it has, the bun tastes so good because it has a lot of salt and sugar, and the burger tastes so good because it has a lot of salt and sugar. And then you're like, ooh, I, the burger tastes kind of odd. Let me add this cheese on there, high cholesterol. Oh, you know what? I need some ketchup, which is additional sugar,
Mm-hmm.
salt and sugar in there. And there's like these hidden, these compounded things that are adding up, and you're like, what the fuck? I just put like 300% times my daily value in this one burger, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Because it's so hidden in layers and layers of yumminess, And then the only time you notice it is when it's really bad. It's like, ooh, that's too salty. But you don't realize how salty the ketchup is. It's usually when the
Mm-hmm.
burger's too salty. When you start to taste the salt, then that's bad. But you don't realize the salt was there the whole
The
time.
whole time.
It's what it was. You know what I'm saying? It's when it goes
Mm-hmm.
extra salty, like ugh. But it's that part where it's like, ooh, this is good. This is good. But if you broke it down, you're like, how many layers of salt and sugar did you already eat to
That's a
get to
good
that point
point.
where it's good? You know?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Like, because
Oh,
one of the things when I was making the mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving and all this stuff, I was telling my lady at the time, I was like, yeah, so sometimes I don't put, if I'm gonna make one dish that's gonna have a little bit more salt, then the next dish I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit salt on it, but I'm not gonna put too much because then that's just another layer of salt. So you have this, and that salt should seep into the next layer of stuff that shouldn't be as salty. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to have all these layer of salty stuff. You know,
You're trying to find your base of salt
for me in my
tolerance.
health, in my for me in my health. But it's like if you do one thing that's really salty, the next thing underneath it shouldn't be as salty because that one thing that's a little bit more salty should bleed into the next. You know, that flavor should carry over.
Oh, it's a fine line. The salt line is so fine
It is.
because you
It
want to get
is.
enough to where you're bringing out the flavor, but
Mm-hmm.
not so much where it's just salt with a side of vegetables and meat.
Yeah,
Oh, it's so tough. It's
but
so
but
tough.
but then if you put it on everything, right? Then that's flavor everywhere, kicking mad flavor in your ear. I mean, now you have mad strokes on your
That's
face. You know?
true. Hypertension, high blood pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's in our generation. That's the American cuisine, and the idea is very fascinating. I've been, you know, lobbing in and out of this, researching, the history of and how different cuisines, and it's fascinating. I
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say, because it's only in our lifetime that like the fast food boom was really us. Uh, Microwave era was a generation before, but the microwave shit that they came out for us was like on some next level from that
I
world.
was on crack. Yeah, we grew up in the grew up in two crack epidemics or three.
Mhm.
It was crack, salt, and sugar. And then
Yeah.
we were also in an age, right?
Mm.
And this is not to blame the family. This is what I believe. We also grew up in an age where two family household incomes were there. Moms weren't, ladies were working more in relationships, right? Because that was the baby boomer generation. The ladies wanted equality, and remember their parents before. Some of them got out of the World War II where their moms were working, right? And some women were trying to regain that part. So the next generation after that, right, were wanting equality, wanting to have a job. Moms, for the most part, moms weren't at home making a lot of dinners for some people, right? Because there's two people at work,
Mm.
and in order to try to work and whatever, you bought food, fast food, because like you didn't have time, or they didn't make time. Let me take it back. It's not that they didn't have time; they just didn't make time the same way. You know?
True. That's true. And it spurned a whole generation like that. And then the food at school corresponded,
Yeah.
in like kind. And it's kind of like who is in charge to whatever it was before to get it to what was that transition? I remember watching that McDonald's movie with Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about the milkshake and going to like powder instead of using whatever, and going from whatever it was to more of a filler type situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, even though that's a movie, I'm like, how true is that? And then in my mind, I'm like, that wasn't just him. It seemed like the entire food industry to some
Yeah, he was
degree.
like, it was
Yeah.
definitely at that time. It was like, well, how can we make like real ice cream? The cost is too high, and whatever. And the people say, well, it's too high. It's the cost is too high if you mess up. And it was like, well, no one will like this powdered sugar. It's like, not if you do it right, you know? I remember watching that. And it's like, that would jump up the cost of it. And then he was looking at ways, which is also on the bear that I didn't start to notice, looking at ways on how to speed up the cooking process. Like, okay, how can what was a faster way for things to move around? You can push out more burgers.
See, that's so
You remember that?
strange.
You remember that on that movie?
On which one?
On that movie, the Crocker movie or whatever, well, yeah, it was Ray Crocker.
Oh yeah,
Took the
yeah,
idea from the McDonald's brothers.
yeah. I remember that. I'm fascinated by that story. I've revisited that story in many different angles. So I was just like to see it from the food side. It is fascinating because one of my cohorts brought it up. It was like, yeah, they used to have that sign, that McDonald's sign, and underneath 1 billion people sold daily. Whatever that was,
Yeah.
that number. And when you really think about it, if we're talking about the move from natural products to synthetic or salt sugar based or highly
Mm-hmm.
preserved or whatever the case is, am I not to think that the beef at that time also was already doing some version of that?
Oh, probably. I mean, my dad used to tell me like they used to do put oatmeal on certain beef or whatever to make it stretch. Like there's techniques to do to make certain beef and food to stretch a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's
and when
that.
and
Yes.
if you mix it together with enough seasoning, you wouldn't even tell what it is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of. I mean, there's not me getting on vegan people, but yeah, I do laugh at certain vegan when it's like vegan burgers and all this stuff. It's like, all right, I get that it's plant. But how healthy is that when you're injected with a bunch of salt and stuff? I get it though, right? You can have one idea of like, well, you're putting injecting a lot of salt with meat on that, it takes longer to process. And I'm just saying, well, are you defeating some of the healthy purpose if you're doing all vegan with high processed stuff in it too? You know, like I've seen someone do and I feel like I'm veering off, but my bad. I saw someone do like a mushroom steak or whatever, right? And what they did was they let it sit in like the soy sauce or whatever to give it the color or do all this stuff, and then they press it down and mix it with the salt to make it look and do it. And I was like, that's not a process, and that's not a salt too, you know?
It's fascinating because as you're saying it, this is what I'm thinking. Vegan cuisine is like any other cuisine. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's like Chinese cuisine. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? It's a certain style in a cuisine. It's a take on an idea of a cuisine. You know, because Chinese food has a lot of different versions of it: dim sum, noodle bar, Szechuan, Cantonese style, Mandarin style,
Mm-hmm.
Taiwanese. So they got their own styles, but all in all, it's still kind of like a summary or a take or a artistic display of what I believe the cuisine is. I think vegan is like that, so then we have to exit out the healthy part. So my curious thinking is, as people who are vegan, are they doing it because they want to be healthy, or they are doing it because they want to not eat, live animals? Is there, I don't want to endanger the earth. It feels like that cuisine is tied more to some cause or something else, or maybe that's just what I'm thinking. But because
Yeah,
I don't know, like
it's a
why
mixture.
pescatarians are
Some people like
pescatarians, vegetarians are
yeah, some people
vegetarians.
like some people are about the like not eating because it's the soul or whatever, face and eyes, and then some people are like, nah, that meat is not healthy for you
Mhm.
and doesn't process well.
Which I
You
think
know,
there's a lot of validity to that too, to be honest. But see, that's coming from the approach of from a health conversation. Because I can't, it doesn't really, the more I think about it, it doesn't really seem like there's one definitive answer. I think
no,
everybody
I'm
has a lot of different things, and there's a certain way of eating that maybe is suitable for each person, and you have to kind of, go through the experimentation of what your body takes well for what you
I mean,
desire. You know what I'm saying?
if if it's to be true, now we don't know if it's true anymore. But they said we're omnivores, right? Because we can eat both, and we have teeth that are designed to do both. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we have teeth to do eat the plants. We have teeth to cut through something. You know, and so it's like so. I think it is a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just that you have to not eat as much meat because it takes a little bit longer. But sometimes that protein being passed is still good for you. Certain other things, but there's a lot of people who say, "Well, why don't you get protein from the direct source, like broccoli all day?" You know, and I was like, okay. I mean, I do want to know what meat was like before all the salt. Because when you really look at it, like the salt really brings up the flavor in the meat, right? Whatever that's in it, and you still got to do pepper and other things on it. So a lot of times we're just eating flesh with seasoning salt on top.
Yeah, I would say the most oldest protein you'll see on menus from time to time would be like mutton, maybe.
Hmm.
Um,
I've never had mutton. Is it like, the only time I remember hearing of mutton is about it was on Seinfeld, and it seemed to be like really fattening or whatever. Like I don't know
to
how you
my
made it seem. It was like
recollection,
it sounded disgusting.
it's a little gamey. If you ever had like wild like game meat, like maybe like a turkey would be close.
Okay.
A turkey does have a distinct flavor profile. It's not as pronounced in versus chicken, right?
Hmm.
Given that Thanksgiving just passed, when you eat a turkey, um there's a certain flavor profile there that's a lot different than your regular poultry. that's like a hint of wild. But then when you get into like certain types of, other animals, like yeah, like a
So
mutton,
so
for
so what
sure,
about
it's a little
duck? What
more
about duck?
gamey. Duck definitely has a gamey flavor as well. If you ever had
Mm-hmm.
duck breasts, duck legs, same thing, not as pronounced, but duck breast for sure. You could definitely taste. There's just a different type of flavor profile that's very it's unique. Um,
Because I've had duck fat fries, and it's like it has a weird like it seems like more fattier. You know what I'm
it's
saying?
rich. It
Yeah.
it tastes rich. You can tell it's good stuff though. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at least the way I think about it, because my views on a lot of this stuff definitely change
Mm-hmm.
as more information comes out, and I think it's like that. The line keeps moving. There's no definitive. I think it's a forever conversation, but I think wild. I think there is something to uh, wild meat.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the question of like what were they eating back then, I would say yeah, modern day. I think mutton would be the closest, but it has a certain level of oh, that has some. Like you ever had goat? Goat's pretty ancient.
I haven't had goat. Nope, not yet.
Okay, okay.
Honestly,
Certain
I
beef
haven't
is
ate a
like
lot
that.
of I haven't ate a lot of the I haven't ate a lot of like the gamey stuff, basic stuff. You know, like I
Okay.
like I so I'm a yacht from that. 'Cause I'm like I'm not too sure, but it's
Oh
like
no, no, you're
I
good,
have to
bro.
get through I have to get through it because it's like there's a I always joke around when people say racist stuff about certain things, like certain people don't eat certain things. It's like it's just because you consider it an animal here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
Like because like
true. I don't even think
I'm
that's a
like
bad thing, to be honest. I'm like, dude, that could be solely tied to maybe as simple as, nope, deep in my roots of my past. That nah, that's a no go. Like somehow it could be that because and it's associated with a lot of like for example, Asian cultures do a lot of offal eating. It's very common to have a lot of the
mm,
intestines and blood and for
yeah,
certain types of reasons for whatever. Um, and it's good to some people. It's horrible to a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the dishes. Some I've come
yeah.
accustomed to liking. Um, it's hard to say, dude. Like it's strange. It's an interesting conversation because I'm curious to know how people interpret
Well,
cuisine
like for
at the same end too.
like for me, like growing up in America and parts of Sacramento where people like saying Asian people eat dog, and it was like this whole like statement. I'm like, you look at it and like, what the fuck, right? And then at one point when I got older, I was sitting there like, you guys say these things, but it's like to me, it's like you only say it because it's different to you in America, and you think that's this disgusting. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
You think that's terrible, but like that's just because you domesticated a dog out here. But if you had to and you had to survive, you'd probably eat a dog. You know?
Yeah, that's true. Or you have to ask how it came to be.
Yeah.
And that's what's strange. It's like, yeah, we treat dogs like gods here. But then also you
Hmm.
look at, Egypt. Did they treat dogs or their cats like dogs back then? Did they hold high
Hmm.
positions in office? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The way it looks, you're like, that the motherfucker could have been vice president. Like, I have no idea. Like, what? Over here, we're not that far, at least in California. I could see a dog getting voting rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see it. It's crazy,
Yeah.
but the way that you see businesses cave into pets, you're like, yo,
Mm.
we have pet hotels. Like we have
Yeah.
homeless people out here. Like what?
Yeah. Yeah. I need what is it? My dog, my comfort dog. It's a whatever dog. I can't think of the term, but it's like I I I get stressed and meet my dog. Now I do see people that do that. I'm like, I get that, right? But then I see some people that abuse it with their little bitch dog.
Oh, no. You know what's funny? In California, you can't even question a service dog.
Yeah, and people do it to lie.
But
It's
that's
my
what's
service
crazy is
dog.
because it's like
I'm
there's
like,
signage and it's strange because it's like in places, especially where there's food involved, it's so casual for people. And I'm like, that's not to say it's a bad thing. It's just there's a lot of red flags there. So the fact that it's casual for some and not for others, and then there is a unveiled, kind of situation. But it's just strange because I'm like, you can't question it. So it could go unmarked and you could just I was like, that's so crazy to me. I was like, but whatever. What do I know?
Like there's a part of me like it's a comfort dog, but there's a part where like, what is the dog actually doing to? What is it doing to service? I get stressed out, so it makes you're just okay. All right, we've let these people go too far.
I'm cool with the people that need it. I'm not cool with the people that know they're abusing it.
That's what I'm.
You know
That's
what I'm
what I'm saying.
saying? I
I
feel
like
you,
no.
bro.
I'm completely fine with the people with the identifiable service dog where it has the whole flat jacket and everything and the metal bar or whatever that is trained.
Yeah,
I'm perfect because I've
yeah.
seen it and I know that military members need it. I'm not okay with people having little pugs or little chihuahuas as their saying that they're service dogs.
Oh man, I
You
feel
know,
you,
you're
bro.
just a dog lover. You're just a dog lover, and that's fine. But you try to make it more than it really needs to be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you, such is the world because you want to have your dog, in a restaurant while everybody else is eating because you have the right to do that,
You
and
know
it's
what?
not
What?
where
That is
you
strange.
don't you don't you don't you don't even bother to be like, yo, could this be disgusting to other people? I don't care. It's my dog. Okay, that's exactly what it is.
I
Because
mean,
you're
dogs are interesting, man. Like, okay, think about this. Famous painting of
well, I was gonna
dogs.
say,
What comes to your mind?
yeah, dogs playing poker or dogs playing pool.
Come on, man. That's up there with the Mona Lisa, bro, in terms of how popular
Yeah,
that painting is.
yeah.
maybe maybe that's what it is. Our true worship is the dog in this culture.
Mm-hmm.
Where, on other situations, uh, are we of the high society and are we the new way and they're the old way, or are we the old way and they're the new way? That's what's strange. Like, are we flip-flopped? Because we're thinking we're ahead, but we're not really aware of what's happening everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
see what
true.
I'm saying? Like, we're over here like, yeah, we need, no more gas. We need electric. And meanwhile, you got India and everybody else like looking at 95 different versions of nuclear power. Like, what is going on, yo? These fools about to have spaceships for real. Like, at the rate they're going, they're gonna figure out some shit where it's like, oh, here's a little radium ball you put in your injection. That's 100 years of fuel for you. Like,
Yeah, and you're good to go.
yeah, we over
And we
here
made
like,
it less
we
likely
need wind
combustible.
turbines. We need no
Yeah,
more gas. Can't sell cars. Like, what the? But I digress.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know where that spent from. We went. How did that even get
Well, we
into
were
there?
talking about dogs, and then you
Oh,
were
that's
talking
right.
about are we doing what's right? And we're like, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know why Asian people eat them, but I get it though. I have seen it.
I mean, I don't know if they do or not.
I could
I just hate
understand
that.
it. There's domesticated dogs and there's dogs for consumption, but it's trying to really figure out, like, is that some, like, was everybody eating some meat back then, or how different were the combinations of cuisine back then? I'm kind of with
Well,
you in
yeah.
that because it is hard to tell. Like, I don't really get it either.
Well,
When I do history, I'm like, what? King Louis is the reason why we have so and so, this and that.
sandwiches, right?
I think
Isn't
so.
it
Yeah,
or
sandwiches. He's
the
he's
sandwiches,
credited
right?
for a lot of cuisine for some reason, and I'm like,
Which he probably didn't. He probably just had someone because he was leadership. It was under his name.
it's a
That's what
good
it always
point.
seems like,
Mm-hmm.
But well, because like yeah, today. So today I was like looking up stuff. I was looking up. I was looking up. Okay, pork belly, right? And then I was looking at pork belly and I was like, what's the difference between pork belly and bacon? And I'm like, I think pork belly and bacon are the same thing, right? It's like cucumbers and pickles. It's just a process of whatever. And so I started looking up. Essentially, it is like essentially pork belly or bacon is thinly cut pork belly, but then also I think they do other things, nitrates and stuff like that, to add more salt to it. You know. And then I started thinking like, ooh, I guess I'll stop eating bacon. I'll just eat pork belly. Like eliminate the other stuff and go straight to the fresh source, which seems to be a little bit better. Because I was like, well, what if I made a dish with like cut up pork belly in it, you know?
You be Chinese.
Well, I mean, like, okay, say like I had a pork belly and I chopped it up and I put it into a mixture of like some vegetables, which defeats the purpose. But
Oh no, that's Filipino cooking all day, bro. That's our only vegetable
Yeah.
dish on the platter is a dish that has pork
Or
belly in it.
is lechon pork belly?
Lechon,
Deep fried?
it's known for pork belly, but it's the whole pig. But there's a lot of
Oh,
parties where they'll just get the belly because that's the fattiest part. They'll poke
mm,
it and do the whole air fry thing. Um, but yeah, no, that shit is tremendous. But I get that. I get that. Go straight to the source. You know, cut the middleman out and just go to the purity and try to figure out the purity of it.
yeah,
There's
I'll
that
make my
level
own
of it.
bacon, you know? Be like, all right, I'll make my own bacon and let it dry out with the
Mhm.
salt and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But when I started to look at it, I was like, oh, you cut some pork bacon, you let the fat from the pork belly
render
to
out.
add into a different render out to a different
Ooh,
fill, you know? Or you can
that
use it
pork.
render out and be like, yeah, this is pork belly fat fries, you know?
Oh,
Like
pork.
the fat fries, you know?
Ooh, pork is it's my nemesis. I
It
love
is
it
a
and hate it.
delicious
It is it's
it is
so
a
good.
delicious beast, right?
I feel bad for the propaganda against it, you know. Um it's the most hated protein out there.
It is.
Aside
Like
from
I
fish.
honestly
Fish is not
that's
even
funny.
included.
No, no, yeah. Fish is more people like I can't stand the smell. I can't stand like and people associate being sick with fish because that's what I feel like everybody's like, I got sick with the fish.
Oh, dude, everybody don't matter what you could have had, you know, one shrimp and then ate a half cooked turkey. Man, that fucking shrimp fucked me up. Huh? What are you talking about? That turkey didn't fuck you up. You don't think, you know, the mashed potatoes, you know what I'm saying? Like not a cranberry sauce on that, pumpkin pie right
Yeah,
after that. You don't think 3 naps before that, room temperature, peas, all that shit didn't fuck you up?
yeah, right.
That mac and cheese didn't fuck you up? No, 5 cheeses. Oh, okay, nah.
You know,
It was that
oh
shrimp
no,
cocktail? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
it was a shrimp cocktail, man. I ain't trust it.
Yeah, it's the
I was
most
like, what?
hated. It's the most. It's the
Yeah,
most. It's like Vince McMahon during the Attitude Era. You know what I'm saying? It's the most hated.
yeah.
Most hated. But then
That's
you
fine.
got pork that's right above it. Pork gets a
Yeah,
lot of hate.
because like the Muslim areas, like yo, don't, and then like there's a lot of
It's
people
that
like I don't
swine.
eat pork. That's swine.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because I've mentally been there too, where I really haven't ate unless it was like a breakfast burrito with pork. I don't really eat a lot of pork. A lot of it has to do with the heavy fat and salt intake. Like actually, I had something the other day where it was like it was I want to say it was asparagus wrapped with bacon on it.
Oh.
And then I
Ooh.
was just like, there's a part of me that's like, because everything else is so salty. I was like, I'm just gonna eliminate this bacon off of it because it's like it's just too much already, you know?
Oh man, that's so hard to do. I love that pork shit. I love a lot of the
I did,
cured meats. That's my shit for sure. That's like,
yeah,
oh, it's
cured meats, yeah. It
woo,
ain't curing shit. It
prosciutto,
ain't.
salami, all that good
What is
stuff.
prosciutto? Which one is it that they is prosciutto? Which one of it is really bacon, but they call it something else in Italian food? Is it prosciutto or is it?
No, that is oh, what is that?
Because like they put it in there, they put it like on a carbonara pasta.
Pancetta, maybe?
Is it pancetta?
It could
Yeah,
be pancetta. Pancetta is the one that you cook,
it's like
but
raw
that's
bacon, right? Oh, it's
it's like
not
a
it's cooked.
rolled
Okay,
up belly or a rolled up like pork loin basically or some shit. And then it's but
yeah.
I think it's a belly, rolled up belly if I'm not mistaken. And then
Oh,
it's
pancetta
cured
is
and
a
then you cut
salt
it.
cured pork belly meat.
Yeah. It's
Is
bacon.
bacon and
Italian
pancetta
bacon.
are both cut from the belly of the pig, but the products are not identical. Bacon is cured with salt and then smoked and sliced. Who said you had to smoke it? I guess you have to. It
That's
needs
what
to be
make it
cooked before you
bacon.
eat. Pancetta, sometimes called Italian bacon, is cured with salt, black pepper, and spice and rolled into
A cylinder.
a cylinder.
Yep. Which is
I
pretty good.
really when I read that, all I'm saying is like, oh, it's not different. No, it's the same. You just process it. You know, it's kind of like right
They
now.
fucking with us. They fucking with us, bro. That's what they're doing. They're trying to pretend like, oh, we're all these different cuisines. I'm like, no, motherfucker, it's awful one cuisine, and you just slowly flip it and try to put it to us like, I don't know, it's something totally different. No, it ain't.
Yeah,
It's just the same shit.
that was another thing I'm cooking where I'm like, wait, so what makes a season different? Oh, I'm gonna make some not curry. Sorry, I was gonna make some jerk chicken. I started looking at jerk chicken ingredients. I'm like, this is almost the same as Cajun seasoning, but they just add like cinnamon and sugar in it or something like that,
That's true. Some
and probably
raisins.
some cumin. But it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you just added three more things in there, and it's
See,
like
and
it's
that's
brand
what's
new.
it's strange, right? You're like, yo, ingredients. That's how I kind of got into, helping my history searches is following just food, bro. If food is
Mhm.
so strange, man, it's very strange. Just finding out where like the origin of certain, foods come from, or anything about food is interesting to me. So that's what I'm
It
thinking. I'm
is,
like, yo, Bill Gates owns hella land, bro. Like he's gonna be the head of food guy like within the next 5 years or something.
yeah, he owns a hell of food, man. And sometimes I think people forgot during the COVID, there was farmland being burned,
Oh,
or not
hella
being burned,
legacy
but
burns.
whatever was happening. There
Oh,
was a
they
lot of
were
farm.
lighting on fire.
Yeah, it was like Busta Rhymes, move, bitch, you like your ass on fire. You know what I'm
Doof,
saying?
doof, like your
Get the ass
ass
on
on
fire. You know
fire.
exactly
Doof,
what I
doof.
was talking
Yeah,
about.
that chicken coop in Minnesota that was like a
Hmm.
heritage farm, like that went up. There was it was like in a week there was like 18 of them,
Hmm.
and now we're trying to figure out, hey, why is all this stuff expensive, and why is it only coming from
Why is
one place?
eggs going up? And then that was another thing too. I started noticing like, damn, we use eggs and everything.
Jeez,
It's
man.
kind of funny. It's kind of funny because it's like, oh yeah, like I was talking about making mac and cheese. So you got to use milk to make mac and cheese on top of cheese and other milk-based products. I was like, this sounds like you're putting milk on top of more milk, but different. Well, it's not milk anymore. It's called cheese. Well, what is cheese? Is milk that's been
It's
processed,
just we have to do something with
like
this shit.
yeah. It's like, was this the same thing? Is
But then
you
French
know,
people put a twist on it and give it years and some cool ass name, and then
or
put some
butter,
mold
right?
on it and shit. Like, oh, here we go.
Or butter. Like from my understanding, butter is pretty much the separation of the fat from the milk,
Oh
correct?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And so it's like, so
Yeah,
butter is
clarified
the is
butter, and then yeah.
clarified, but I don't know what clarified butter is different from butter, but I know it is different somehow. It just
Like
has
you
a
said,
different
it
like
just
well.
separates the milk solids, and then you're just taking the
But
top
then
part.
what's the difference between butter and a clarified butter? I guess.
Uh, Clarified is you allow it, you heat it at a low temp, and then the milk solids separate from the whatever that is called, and then you scoop it out without the milk solids. So when you cook, it has like a higher smoking point, is a really good positive thing. So it's almost like using
Mm-hmm.
oil in a way, but it's coming from the butter. I forgot what that substance is called, but that's different, where butter is just kind of the regular, all the things put together. So that's why sometimes you'll
Mm-hmm.
get the brown butter, and those nodes, those come with
Yeah.
the milk solids. That's what gives it that flexibility there, which is also tremendous.
And butter is literally just fat,
Oh, so
right?
good, so
So
good.
good,
Oh,
especially on my popcorn going to the movies.
see, but I think that's where we get kind of obstructed or confused, because then they introduce like margarine. Oh, this is
Which is
cheaper.
oil, which
Exactly,
is
it's
just
something
what is
which
just
is which
it's
is
frozen
worse.
oil. It's like yeah, so like you have margarine, which is like canola oil that's frozen over time.
See, that's what I'm to believe and remember now. It's like getting away from oils and going more into, fats.
Hmm.
See, is
Well,
is the
I
reality
do
of it.
remember like, and for a minute when like some of the best food I ever had is when people cooked off of lard,
Yeah.
you know. But then you have like your arteries, so it's like okay,
See, my my
what
my
can
thinking is that I think the preferred method would be the tribal method. At least the way I'm thinking is primarily vegetable and legume, kind of lifestyle, and then proteins come at celebratory, or kind of uh astrological pass-throughs, or breakthroughs like that. I think that's
mm-hmm.
probably the most ideal if we're trying to convince the idea that we need to preserve wildlife and less farming, because I think less farming would be ideal, and more people
Mm-hmm.
farming their own stuff would
Yeah,
be
like
ideal.
in their own background, or I mean, because that was one of the things when you talked about the French Laundry off topic, we were talking about the knives. I wanted to say one of the things I noticed is at the French Laundry, I believe they have their own garden that they pick their fresh fruit that morning or something like that.
They do have a garden. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But that's so strange though. It's like you're paying a premium price to eat food where technically this is all we used to do as a culture, like not that long ago.
Well, I mean,
Most people
more
lived on
refined, yeah.
farms, and then
Uh,
no, but I mean, essentially, a lot of those, at least to my knowledge, not all restaurants, but higher end ones, a lot of their ethos is just we just have good ingredients, and we're just trying to accentuate what's around us and give it the best stage to, do its thing. I'm like, that is kind of what it is. And it's so strange because that's kind of lost in the way that people think about food.
and while I'm going through the whole journey too, there's times where I'm like, what makes a good like a Michelin star chef and whatever? Because there's times where I mean, obviously there's a certain sophistication that some people can do, but sometimes I'm like, well, if we're all using the same kind of ingredients, right? For the most part, what makes it more like so much better on certain aspects? Because I don't know. Because there's times where okay, I'll put it this way: if I went to a mom and pop, you know, older black lady with a gobble arms, whatever. You're eating there and you're like you feeling good, but you're feeling lethargic. Like, oh, that was some good food. Hella salt. Your blood pressure might be high, whatever. The Kool-Aid is thick. Like you like your girls. That's good food. But that's not elegant to some people. But it's most people would be like, yo, that shit was all good. But then there's a different level of sophistication when you go to like, oh, you went to the French Laundry and you see what they do, and it's like, well, what is it that makes these things a little bit better? There's the only thing I can see is that there's sometimes where when I've cooked certain things, there's a level of sophistication of or balance of the salt, where it's like, ooh, this came out really well. Like when I do the Gordon Ramsay eggs or whatever, the eggs come out really well, really smooth, and there's enough salt to where it doesn't overpower. It's a nice balance. That's the only thing I can think of.
Um, I think a lot of the times, I mean, my opinion, Michelin star restaurants, a lot of it's everything else but the food. I mean, the food's at a certain level and
Mm,
standard, but it's really the
that's a
hospitality.
presentation.
The
Mm,
hospitality is big. The ambiance, maybe to a certain degree. But
hmm
I would say it's hospitality more. The food, I think for the kitchen and chefs, that strive for it, I think it's it, the Michelin star is just a longer term recognized like standard of doing food. I think it grew into that. I don't think it was never initially that, but
hmm
because of where I think it started in Europe in the certain areas, it just became like a natural competition. It's like imagine, um, Hoop It Up being something that we just do locally. And it's like the
Yeah.
biggest tournament of the year. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, this is
hmm
where the Hoopers of the Hoopers go. And then then whoever wins is like, top. You know what I'm saying? It's like that.
Okay. 'Cause I mean,
Because it's a
there are times where
small,
I
small
watch.
community of people, and then all of a sudden it became the standard, and then it associated with a lot of top chefs, but it's like it was to the point I think where it was, oh, this is for competitive. Oh, I got a star. You got, and then it became, hey man, this is like ruining people's lives, bro. It's too serious. Like, hey, just chill.
Ooh, I've heard
Like, stop. Everybody, just
according to
stop.
the scene. Yeah, it looks like sometimes when I was watching the bear, like I didn't like. There's parts where I'm like, why is it so? Like I get it stressful, but it's like fighting, right? And I'm only assuming that some of the bear is replicating what it's like in a certain kitchen, and I'm only assuming, right? And I don't know if it's all true, when you watch Gordon Ramsay shows and he's yelling, I'm like, why? Like, shouldn't you all like you understand the pressure to it? But it's like this whole idea of high frustration of cooking.
Ego.
I don't know. I mean, I understand too. I was stressed out trying to make the gumbo and everything, and I was by myself. I just don't see the point of yelling, and all that stuff to it. I don't know,
I think it's just
but
difficult for dudes because it's artistic. The dudes that take it like that, I think
mm,
it's like, putting your music out and then there's a definitive judge
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to
right.
like just public opinion. And I think that's what the Michelin star is. It's just a public opinion from a rating system that is, antiquated, but it has a reputation because it's associated with a lot of restaurants from the past.
Mm,
Um, not to say it isn't associated with restaurants now, but there's a lot of different awards nowadays. There's a lot of different recognitions. Different organizations that put different restaurants on. I mean, there's a lot of ways that people find restaurants nowadays. Michelin stars is
Hmm.
one of the few ideas, but it's just it's. I think a lot of that is just more hospitality ambiance. I think where the food is I think in my opinion now is good sourcing. I think that's
Hmm.
I think that's what Michelin star restaurants, at least the ones I've read up on, put a premium on. They're like trying to
And,
really find like the most meticulous things. Like I like really want specifically this, which is, but it's like a very specific artist that just people would say that's over the top. Oh, I need my dressing room like this, but they're trying to create something. See, and where food gets a kind of weird thing because it's still functional. Like you're eating something.
hmm.
Where performing is like you're just exchanging energy, which is definitely important. And there's all that going on, but with food, there's that element plus here's the food, and it's like Michelin star restaurants. I think it's upholding reputation and ego. It's a world. It's a weird competitive world like that. I think a lot of ego into it. Is my art better than your art based on
Hmm.
random judges? And then there's bragging rights, and there's the business aspect of it, and it's just a lot of ego, which is why it pushes the way it pushes. That's what kind of keeps the ball rolling in the sphere of culinary world. When one topples out, one enters the fray, and there's talent all around. And it bumps up, and it goes with the themes of cooking going forward. It's just yeah, the philosophy is very 1%. It's a very small community of people that pay attention to those worlds. Like people be like, "Oh, who's Thomas Keller? Who's French Laundry?" It's like some people know, some people don't. It's
Yeah.
like, but it's cool to know of, and that's why it's kind of exclusive club. Like, hey, you ever heard of? I was like, what? It's like underground hip hop. Hey, you ever seen? And that's what
Well,
it's kind of
you ever
like.
done?
Hey, you ever ate here? No, but you ever ate here? That you ever got this dish? It's like this is collecting Jordans and collecting baseball cards and basketball
No,
cards and shit.
did you watch? Did you watch The Bear?
I watched a couple episodes, some of the early episodes, but I can
Oh,
imagine what it's about just based off of what I hear from other people. I heard it's a great
mhm.
show. The actor I'm into, but yeah, what do you take from it?
Well, I know, but it was about there's a part in a movie where like or the show where it's like I've heard stories where restaurants, and this is where you have the Michelin star attitude because it's really about the service and everything. Where restaurants will go to other places, right, and get like you're oh this guest wants this, and they'll run to like In and Out or whatever, but then they'll put the In and Out burger on a 5-star plate and then plate it a certain way and then put it out there and people are like, oh you got me this burger and it's about the service and then they played it a certain way to make it look nice but it's really like an In and Out burger, but what happened is like it's because the customer really wanted it and so they're providing this top tier feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but then they add their little whatever, like ooh let me do this and let me ooh put a little bit of parsley on this and good to go, put it out there. You have to have the green for the presentability.
There's a lot
Don't
of
put
that
green
fuckery.
onions because once you put green onions on it, then once it hits salt, then the flavor really pops a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely something I learned with green onion. You put green onions on something that's salty, the green onion like pops.
It goes.
It goes doo doo dumb.
Yeah, no, that's you do have a point there. That is very strange.
Like I do want to oddly enough is like because I'm in that whole like creating one. Like there's a part of me too where I'm looking at the cooking. I'm like ooh I want to make my own ice cream, and it's so funny because before I got into this, there's certain times when you see stuff and you're like, oh, you couldn't do that. Now I'm like, oh, actually, I can do that. I just need the right tools to do this. You know,
Oh yeah.
it's like, oh, I can never make a food like that. Actually, you can. You just have to have the right tools. And
Like
then
the
when you have the
Matrix,
right
bro.
tools,
You can learn, man. It's easy. I
mm,
Everybody should. Everybody needs to revert back to learning how to do all the gardening stuff. You got to break up this cycle of how we get food. I think that's what the last 4 years and the next 4 years is about sourcing. I think the
Mm-hmm.
questions are going to be because like inflation is out there. It's a conversation having now. It's like, why is pork and beef and all these things the same price as, you know, uh, sushi grade fish? Hey, that's a good point. Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is eggs this price? Oh, what happened? Why did these farms burn? Wait, what's going on? Oh, wait, all the meat
Mm-hmm.
companies are only this many companies. Wait, there's only it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation, because how much is placed on food as uh need versus, health. The
Yeah,
conversation I think is not even fully on display. I think there's a lot of different ways to approach it.
well, I feel like because it's like it's no longer it's part of the gluttony, and that's not just America because like I said, a lot of people consider like French type style of food as the pinnacle of eating,
Hmm.
and but like knowing where your food is from, how it's made, and it's very important. Like even like when you're talking about the prawns, and I put in the gumbo, it's like just by that being, even though it wasn't at like your maybe it wasn't, but maybe it was a little bit more fresh than the other one. It popped more than the frozen shrimp.
Oh, those
Maybe
those are
that's
really
mental.
good. It's the
Maybe I
water,
was it
but
was
no, it's
mental.
it's the water, bro. It's from the Gulf, man. Gulf water is something different. If you
Mm,
really think about it, it's like, what they're eating in terms of nutrients, and if they're in water, you got to think about, you're a Navy guy, just
mm.
the amount of
Oil that they eat.
nutrients, just just like no, but like nutrients. I mean, the ocean's like
Well,
infinite. You're like, damn,
yeah,
dude,
no,
like how much
yeah.
ecosystem and how much is just in there. And what they say about those waters down there is they're getting that Gulf Stream, that one that goes all the way up to like Norway. So they're getting that circulation of all those nutrients. So all the seafood there is like top notch. That's why Louisiana, all that Florida stuff, rounded out Mexico, kind of all
Hmm.
that Tulum area. That's all they're getting all that crazy good seafood. That's some weird high dense nutrient combination of, good stuff out there. At least that's how I'm thinking it. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you ate them, you're like, what? And that's why people love that seafood. It does
Hmm.
have a distinct, energy profile, I would say. Water's powerful, man. You know what I'm saying? There's something in
Yeah,
there. That's why seafood, I'm like,
yeah. There was this. I think it was a documentary. I can't remember the name of it, but this guy came up. I think it was like real ridiculous or something like religious or whatever was making fun of religion. But
okay.
there was one guy that said this one guy said something. He was like he was breaking down what Jesus was because the person was trying to break it, and it was one of the best answers. He's like, well, in many cases, God is like water, right? Because we talked about God as water. Is like it's a liquid, it's a solid, and it's a gas. It's everything, but nothing at the same time.
Mm.
And I heard that I was like, maybe the life force is really water because when you think about it, most things can't live without. Most things can't live. Things can live a very long time without water. Most things can't live without water.
Mm.
You know.
Mm. See, John Dory fish. They say it has the mark of, I think, a Jesus or some kind of deity, but it's a fish that has a
Hmm.
black mark on it, and that's its claim to fame, as it's touched by God or Jesus himself, and
Hmm.
it's marked on every fish. I was like, it feels, because seafood is most hated. This feels like anybody who started watching wrestling only when Hollywood Hogan was around, but they weren't
Yeah.
around for like,
Hulk
uh
Hogan.
the real Hulk Hogan. So what if
Or super.
seafood was the real Hulk Hogan before it got hated on? Because that's what it
It's
feels
weird
like,
because
right?
I feel it's weird. It's funny because it was like I've never had a situation where I've ate seafood and felt lethargic.
Mm-mm.
The only time is if I ate too much, and that's my fault. But
But yeah,
it's
that's
it
probably like hella
the
shrimp, hella crab,
yeah,
like for
yeah, and
sure
it's
at a
fried or
buffet. Yeah,
whatever.
it is fried.
For the most part, I eat like the salmon that you give me. I'm like, ooh, that was good.
You feel like you work out after.
Especially, yeah, exactly, and especially when it has that crispy fatness or the fat. Because it's weird, because like I eat it like right when I get out of the air fryer, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people, when I hear them eat the salmon, it's like that. It's like after it's set and it's like kind of dried out, but I'm like, ooh, I don't know, because when I ate it right out and it's still kind of oily and whatever, I'm like, that tastes way better than when it's dried to me,
It tastes like the butter on popcorn. That's
bruh.
gonna
Opposed
lube
to
my
like
joints.
opposed to like it sitting there and the juices
Uh,
dry up, but it's still soft or whatever. It's still that's
yeah,
what most people eat the salmon like, where it's like that kind of like, oh, it's good soft, but it's like kind of like
yeah,
not tough, but you know what I'm saying, right?
yeah.
But when I've done it where it's like, no, you cook it less and then you let it juice in, and it's like, no, and then it's like really juicy,
Hmm. Oh yeah, oh yeah. That salmon's real fatty. It's nice. Yeah, I'm
bro.
thinking that's how seafood was, man. The more I learn
Mm,
about seafood, it's like there's some weird psychology situation in the last I don't know how many years. Because it seems like seafood was more of an ancient thing. It's tied to
oh,
a
I
lot of
mean, yeah.
ancient cultures, a lot of seafaring people. Most people live on the coastlines, so it's strange
Mm,
to think that we never ate seafood or something. It feels like it
yeah.
was an everyday thing. I think the prices are reflective of the efforts made to try to make it happen. And that's what, is kind of the situation going on in fishing to some degrees. It's like, yeah, there's big fishing vessels that, do a lot more commercial size fishing because of the high demand. Um, kind of budgeting out and, elbowing its way through smaller divisions of farm or
Mhm.
of fishermen. I'm like, huh. So I think fish has maybe something a part to do with it. But I'm still on the flight of like, I think fruit has a place somewhere is important also because fruit is
Not for
uh
sugar.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's hydrating. Um the Adam and Eve story for people that are familiar. I'm not too familiar with it, but they're picking something, whether it's an apple. I've heard that's a orange. I've heard different theories of what that is, but
Hmm.
the idea that it comes, from a tree plentiful, especially with tropical fruits, the mangoes and papayas and all those just keep on growing. Like that's like
Yeah.
infinite, and they just
No.
fall. Sometimes you just go up and pick it. You're like, hey, is
Mm-mm.
this feels more
Cassava
natural.
melons. Cassava melons.
You know what I'm saying? That feels more
Yeah.
natural. You know what I'm saying? That feels like a more natural vibe as opposed to, I need to make some rice and then I gotta, make this corn and harvest, back-breaking work. You're like, yo, man, just
Yeah.
eat some apples. Eat like 40 of them.
Yeah. So I'm definitely hitting the wall right now.
Oh, no, you
I'm
good.
starting to feel it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
good. You good. Let me exit out, bro. Hey, Sky High. Thank you,
Sky
brother.
high, knock some
Always.
cow.
Always.